So I think it's worth summarizing what we've learned about transformations on functions. So I'm actually going to start down here, and let's look at some transformations that have been done and talk about what each one does. So if we have a negative sign out in front of the entire function, making everything in the function negative, what does that do? Well, it changes the sign of y. That is a reflection over the x-axis, if you go back and look. All right, let's change colors here. Get some different colors going. All right, so this minus 3, what does that do? If we say x minus 3, well, that was a translation. And remember that the signs were the opposite of what we expected. So that's actually a translation. But it's not to the left, it's to the right by 3. And I suggest you use desmos.com to go back and prove that to yourself if you need to. And finally, down here at the end, we have a plus 10. Well, adding something to the entire function means we're adding it to y. So that is a translation in y. If we're adding something, we're making it move in the positive y direction. So we are translating up by 10. Okay. For this one, if we start with 10 to the x and we multiply it by 1/2, that multiplies our y by 1/2. That is a vertical shrink by 1/2. Whenever it's less than 1, you know it's a shrink. And the other change we see is that x in the exponent becomes 2x. So again, x works the opposite of what you might expect. So while you might think that that's a stretch, I want you to go back, look at Desmos, and you're going to see that that's going to be, it's horizontal because it affects x, but that is also a shrink. It actually shrinks x by a factor of 1/2, or 1/2. Okay, because the x's are opposite from what we expect. Okay, so let's try doing one of these ones up above. If we know that we have a vertical stretch by 5, that means we're going to multiply the whole thing by 5. So what I do is I start with the parent function. Parent function is x to the third. So I'm going to put x to the third here. Okay? But then I'm going to figure out what I need to do to the various parts. And actually, I'm going to move my exponent over a little bit. I want to allow for making some changes here. So I'm just going to set it up like that. Okay, so if I know that I am, let's see here. First thing I do is I'm vertically stretching by 5. That's going to multiply the whole thing by 5. I'm also going to translate 4 units to the left. So I know that's going to be the opposite of what I expect, so it's going to be a plus 4. Okay? And lastly, I'm going to move down. 6 units down. That gets taken away from the function as a whole because it affects the y value. So we put a -6 at the end. Now there's a couple here that you can try. And please, please ask for help as you're doing it.